Hello, people, welcome back. So, here we are. This weekend is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in real life. So, if you're watching this, well, you're probably gonna want to race in Baku for some odd reasons or so. I don't really enjoy this track, but let's see what we can do for this track. So, Baku, as we know, that super massive long back straight, whatever all the superlatives you can use for that pit straight, all the way from turn 17 or 18, that is. So it's pretty much like a 2 kilometer uh, stretch and a long straight line, but DRS only for halfway down the straight. So you're gonna need a lot of straight line speed in order to be competitive around here, to not get overtaken, and also to make it easy when you want to overtake someone. At the same time, you need a good amount of stability and cornering speed as well through the variety of slow speed corners that are present in this track. So unlike other tracks where it's usually pretty open corners, here are pretty tight. It's mostly like 90 degrees, so which makes it a bit tricky when it comes to driving. You have to be a little bit precise, a little bit more precise than usual. And I struggle with this track. I'm not gonna lie about it. As you saw, I went for 2 hot laps, and there's a lot of time left on the table if you just be a bit more precise with the inputs. But after testing this out in my league race quite a long time ago, so back in January or February, I think, that's when I initially made this setup. So looking at the setup, I have updated it slightly to make it better for race since then. I mean, although initially I do make it for races, but here we go. 7-8 for the wings. So you can use 7-8 wings throughout the race, probably for the start and qualifying. 7-8 will be really good to start on. And on heavy fuel, it looks after your front tires, but really, mainly here, you want to be looking after your rear tires. Baku is probably the one and only track where the rear tires wear so much more than the fronts, um, compared to any other track in F1 2021. So you have to be really careful on your throttle input as your tires are starting to wear down, and your setup has to cater for that as well. You can't just be having the most pointy setup for the corner entry, but after 5 laps, when your car starts to wear down, the rear tires starting to wear down, you'll get too much oversteer then. So 7-8 is just good balance there. You can also go 7-9 if you wanna have a very long strategy. So say you're going for a soft to medium or medium to soft, you're gonna run very long. So you're gonna need that extra tire life. So 7-9 just gonna be enough. You will drop a little bit of straight line speed if you're in clear air. That doesn't matter because you can dictate your own pace. If you're in someone's DRS, you're not gonna be compromised because you get free DRS. The only problem is if you're leading a train, and you don't pull a good gap, you might get overtaken. But either way, 7-8, 7-9 is pretty standard around here. Don't go any higher than 9 unless it's wets. So transmission, also I have updated this since the last time I've used it. So the last time I raced, I used 154. The reason was because back then I struggled to get some rotation in the car, and I struggled on braking as well. Didn't really understand the setup that well. Now that I'm a bit better compared to a few months ago, so I can trail brake a little better into corners now. So I'm having a little higher off throttle, just to keep the rears very stable, even when the tires are wearing down. And this also helps you during trail braking where you will need it a lot at this track. So if you have your off throttle very low, the lower you go, the higher chance it locks up when you're braking, or even when you are slowing down, downshifting. The higher you go, it keeps the rear stable when you're downshifting and braking. So that's how off throttle works. You want more stability, you go higher. You want more rotation, you go lower. But remembering that this track is very heavy on the rear tire wear, you want to make sure your rears are looked after in this race. Don't worry about your fronts, they have infinite life pretty much around here. On throttle again, 100 is just nice for the start or qualifying lap, and then when you want to go into the race, you can definitely drop it to 90, 85, 80 as the tires are wearing down, because the higher you go, the more wheel spin you're inducing at early phase. When you go high on throttle, you're stressing out the race even more. So if you want to look after the rear tires in the race, your first 5 laps are going to make or break your race in a way. All right, transmission. Oh no, not transmission, this is suspension geometry. This one also I have changed it. I have used right, left previously in my old setup, if I'm correct. The reason was because again I struggle on traction and also under acceleration. So yeah, braking, acceleration, kind of a struggle in this track for me. I just don't like the track anyway. So I have tried 1.5 on the rear, also nice, I like it. Or you can also go for maximum rear camber. This will give you a good amount of cornering speed, cornering grip in the race as well. If you want to be a little more conservative, you feel your race are wearing on a lot, and you are losing your car a lot at the later part of your races, you can always come back to your setup and adjust it to negative 1.5. I'd say in the middle, it's just nice. It doesn't give you understeer, it doesn't give you oversteer, so uh, good on that. Worst case scenario, if you feel like the rear is very loose after the tire starts to wear down, so you just need that tad bit of stability. Say even on fresh tires you feel the car is snappy or whatever, maybe due to lack of grip or whatever, one click of toe might just do the trick, because you may need it around here given that how heavy the tire wear is on the rears. Alright, otherwise you can keep it as it is and it will be good to go. Suspension, again another change I've done from previous race. Previously I used 1.4, 1.4 to 6, I believe, or somewhere around that. The thing is, suspension, I like to run it 1.1 these days, just so the car is stable on curbs. It doesn't kill you when you take the curbs and whatnot, and acceleration out of corners is so much smoother and so much better as well. Again, very small amount of time, but it's very noticeable if you compare it with a higher suspension setting. So to counter that, to get more rotation, I have increased the rear end to roll bar to 7, and also I've reduced the front right head to 1. That's just to give me a bit more pointiness into the corners now. So I'm able to carry that much extra speed, or I can use higher gears in the race when my rear tires are wearing out, because when your rears are wearing out you'll generate more oversteer. So to offset that, you can run higher brake bias and also use higher gears throughout the lap. So that is a really helpful tip if you want to nail a lap or nail a race in Baku. And also I've increased your rear ride height to 7. The reason is just because it gives you better ground clearance. So when you're accelerating out of corners, the rear of the car has more travel to go. The higher your rear ride height is, there's more travel to it, so it will allow you to kind of put the throttle down a little bit more aggressively. But also, even if you put it down smoothly, it helps to keep the car stable through corners. And I've gone as low as 1.5 actually. It works as well. It's just that in race conditions it kind of gets sketchy a bit, because again tire wear on the rear is an issue around here. If it's a front heavy tire circuit, probably 1.5, 1.6, it's definitely viable. But here in Baku, you want to make sure your rears again and again they are safe. You can also run 2 front ride height. That is to counter off any oversteer that the car is generating through this setup. Either that, or you can drop the front wing by 1 or increase the rear wing by 1. That will stabilize your car. Either way you can do it. Of course, the trade-off is if you increase the wings, you get more drag. You don't notice it that much, even by 1 click here. Front right height also, if you increase by 1, you don't notice it that much of an increase in straight line speed. So use whatever that makes you comfortable. The rest will come to you naturally in the race. Brakes, special for Baku, 51 brake bias. This is, I'd say, probably the most important tip around Baku, compared to any other parts of the setup. And specifically for Baku, I would say always start with at least 51% brake bias. The reason is you want to start looking after your rear tires from lap 1 itself, even on the formation lap itself. At the start of the race, maybe the tires will not wear out that much. The fronts and the rears, they wear kind of equally, but as you go on into the race, 5 laps, 6 laps, you will start to notice the difference between the front and rears keeps getting bigger. Okay, so perhaps on the mediums, your front tires are wearing like 2% a lap, the rears are wearing like 3 to 4% a lap. Maybe over 5 laps it's not noticeable, but when it gets to like 10, you'll probably notice it. The difference is like 20 on the fronts, 40 on the rears, and you will definitely feel a lot of oversteer. So to make sure your car is stable throughout the race, as your tires are wearing out, increase the brake bias. I have gone as high as 54 or even 55 in the race, which really helps to make sure the car does not oversteer into corners or on acceleration and exit. You also have to use higher gears in order to make sure your rears do not lose traction. And once you go into the pits for the next stop, drop the front wing, because on lighter fuel, car gets pointier, means there's more possible oversteer in the race. Okay, so 51, start with that. In qualifying, 51, 52 works nicely. On higher speed corners like turn 1, let's say, that's probably the only corner I'd say you can use 50% brake bias, because it's a high speed corner, so you don't really lose anything or gain anything much by using 50% brake bias. Perhaps it helps with the corner entry when your tires are fresh. When your tires are worn, 51% all the way. Tire pressures, keep the rears on maximum so that you get maximum tire life and also maximum stability throughout the track, throughout the lap. Front tires, you want to make sure they are, again, since they are not that heavy wearing, in this track, you can run as low as you want to make sure the wear increases at the same rate to the rears. Okay, so you can do this to make sure that your car is well balanced throughout the race. Sometimes some people would prefer to go with slightly higher pressures around here, just so they get more heat into the front tires. This is possible. If you want to do this, you can probably run slightly lower wing, one less click on the front. This is to make sure the front bites in even more. But the only problem is lower tire pressure means more wear, higher tire pressure means less wear. So with higher tire pressure, you're going to get less wear, but you counter that with lower front wing, which is going to increase the wear. So you get a balance there, you get a trade-off there, so you can play around with those. I'd say just stick to 23.0 and go for it. Even 22.6 is just nice. Any lower than that, it starts to feel a bit unstable. When you're entering corners and exiting corners, it generates a lot of understeer as well, which you probably don't want too much of it in this race, in this track, given that it's quite tight. So yeah, let's recap the setup. 7-8 on the wings to start off, and then in the race, once you've made your first pit stop or whatever second pit stop, you can go down to 6-8. If you have a late safety car and you feel you want to even drop it even further to 5-8, go ahead with that. That's all on your discretion, but the lower you go, the faster you're going to be on the straights, which going to help you in the later parts of the race. So transmission, start off with 157, and then you can go down to 90, you can go down to 85, 80 in the race. That's nicely done. Suspension geometry, right, left, left, left. Again, no changes to this suspension. Also, again, you can't change much if it's park firming, if it's locked in. The only advice I'll give, if it's going to be raining or there's partial rain in the race, definitely increase the front right height to 2. Just give yourself a bit more ground clearance, and this will also help you to get a bit more stability on the front, so that can help in the race. And maybe just lower the off throttle by 1%. That's all. Lower off throttle by 1% and increase your front right head by 1. That can help you in the race, in the wets. Or you can keep it at 1 front right head. You'll be fine either way. Brakes, again, keep it at 51%. Start off 51. Maybe turn 1 in qualifying or fresh tires, you can go with 50% for a lap or 2. After that, start looking after your rear tires. Tire pressures, as you see, 23.1 on the fronts, 23.5 on the rears. No changes needed for qualifying. Maybe you can go for higher pressures. Even maximum pressures actually work in qualifying, because the tires do not overheat at all around here. So yeah, that's Baku done for you, and hope we have a good time celebrating the Baku race this week. Finally, F1 is back after 2 weeks of break from Monaco, and let's see what happens this time around. Can Ferrari once again lock out the front row and convert that to a race victory, at least double podium or at least a win from either of the drivers? Or will Red Bull show up with something amazing, or are Mercedes going to surprise us out of nowhere? Let's see about that. And in the meantime, be sure to try this out and leave your comments and subscribe as well if you're new here. And we will be bringing you a lot of F122 content right as it releases in the first week. Probably I'll be doing some more setup R&D to find out how the setup works in that car in the new game, how the car handles and whatnot, and I'll be giving you my feedback. I'll be giving you my tips on how to be better in F122 once it's out. Till then, stay safe and take care. Ciao.